have a few questions here.
Yeah.
Someone to go back to our discussion about working from home and the COVID stuff.
Oh
What's
yeah.
your So someone asked what your workflow is uh,
Um,
from home and with regards to updating shared Avid projects.
yeah. I don't actually think I can talk too much about that due to security.
Okay.
Um, but let's say just keep your MXF folders super, super, super tidy. Give them a really, really good file names that are indicative to this moment, as in like COVID. So you know when you need to when you go back to your cutting room, piece it all back together, you know where everything is. You know what day it was and whose it was. Our system, obviously, our Nexus is obviously partitioned. So all of these folders need to go back into the right place. So I would say just do yourself a favor and be as organized now as you possibly can be. And yeah, I mean, that's it really.
What?
Making sure things
So
are
I have
labeled really
another.
well.
We're getting a lot of
Mm.
questions for you here from the group.
Oh, cool.
What was the translation like, or transition? Sorry, from the office to your home, like from a personal perspective and a professional perspective.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, it was much easier than one would think. We have a really, really kick-ass PPS and post-producer and coordinators, and they were really amazing. The kit hire company was amazing. So we took care of the media amongst like the assistants. We sort of handled the majority of that. And then the coordinators and the PPS were sorting out moving kit to people's houses. Um, so in terms of work sense, it was pretty plain sailing, I think. And I think everyone also on the team that I'm currently on had already worked from home.
Mm.
So that wasn't too bad at all. Like from a personal perspective, like, you know, look, clearing out your desk when you don't expect to is always a bit sad. And like I was coming home every night with loads of bags. I have so many things at work. I have like teapots and like gadgets and, you know, mouse and but like bags of it. Like 3 days I was bringing home bags of
Mm.
stuff. And like we all said goodbye, thinking we're not going to see each other for months, and that's really weird. Like we obviously we're going to talk to each other, but that's strange. And then I think for the first couple of weeks I was at home, I was sort of in firefighting mode because you're just ready to jump on a problem that comes up. You
Mhm.
know, the media hasn't connected properly, so you need to help someone do that. You know, can I have this quick thing? Can I have this quick output? So I was sort of on. I was very alert for the first 2 weeks, and then you're also trying to work out within your household how you organize yourselves. And so at home right now, I live with my partner, and we're in two separate rooms. And so we had to set those up. We had to move around furniture, and we had, you know, the kit hire company traipsing in and trying to get the table through the door. And so for the first 2 weeks, I was really preoccupied. And I don't think it was like week 3 of working from home, I was starting to like, my mood was starting to come down. And it was in week 3, I really ran out of Schitt's Creek. Do you watch
Mhm.
that show? Like Jimmy.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I actually went to school with Dan.
What?
Yeah, we went to the same film school.
I am shook. Oh my
But
goodness. It's the best show.
yeah, and a bunch of my friends cut it. So
Okay, we could pause this chat right now
yeah.
and turn it into Sean's Schitt's Creek TED Talk. Very happily. That would make me so happy because I have a little bit of a theory about why it made me so happy those first few weeks. And I hadn't watched it before. So I went through seasons 1 to 5 in like a week and a half, and we
Yeah.
haven't had season 6 yet. So I'm not looking at the chat, no spoilers. We don't get it for like a few more weeks, which is
I'll have to
upsetting.
reach out to the editors and see if they'll all do a live chat as a group.
That would be amazing. Oh.
So
Um, so my theory about Schitt's Creek and why it's so good right now is because you've got a family who their lives are completely turned upside down
mhm.
and move into a completely different situation. They don't have any of the resources. They don't have their own identities anymore to lean on, which I think a lot of people are feeling like now. A lot of people don't have jobs. You can't go out. You can't do like, there's a lot of things you can't do to sort of support what your identity as a human is.
Well, yeah, you
And it
always
was like,
start with what do you do?
yeah, exactly. And so in a weird way, it was like watching a mirror image of what I was experiencing. And the show just gets better and better and more joyful, and they get to grips with their situation, they make relationships, and they mend old relationships, and it's a good show to be watching right now. So yeah, so I ran out of that basically, and then week 4 was sad times. Week 4.
Week 4 is, well, you're gonna have to find another Canadian show. You know, you could always do Degrassi. You could always do what is that show called? Mike's Convenience.
I want all of your recommendations after this. Like
Canadian shows only.
Yeah, because there's nothing. I haven't found anything. Like I think I went from that to Tiger King, and was just like crying on the sofa. Too bad. That wasn't a good next thing to jump to. But yeah, to go back to the original question, week 4 was the week that I just didn't cope very well. To put it that way, I ran out of Schitt's Creek, and it was sad time. And I think I had a minor meltdown in the kitchen over breakfast food, you know.
Yeah.
So I knew. I was like, oh, okay. It's been a little bit like cycling through treacle this week.
Yeah. To go to I guess a happier topic, other than Schitt's Creek ending. How did you get into the film industry?
Oh my goodness. So since I was like 15, 16, like very, very, very much wanted to be in the film industry. And nobody I knew worked in the film industry. No one in my sphere or connected to my sphere. It was a total fantasy land. Like I don't think I really thought at one point that people did work in the film industry. It's just films were made. Mm-hmm. And I occasionally watched behind the scenes, and I sort of knew that maybe people worked in the film industry, but they were far away and I wouldn't know how to get to them even if I tried. And then when I was 15, I worked in Blockbuster, and a guy joined the team who had been to film school. And as soon as I like shook his hand, I was like, hey, where have you come from? And he was like, oh, I just come from film school. I just graduated. Like that was all I was going to do. I was like, okay, I've got a way in now, so I'm going to go do that. And then of course that's not the magic answer at all. Like you go through film school, you make a lot of things, and you come out the other side, and there isn't a job waiting for you. So I temped a lot. I worked on a lot of short films, and then I started working in music television. Like applied for a job as an intern at MTV, and I worked there for a few years, and then I sort of freelanced in music television and commercials and short forms for quite some time. And then I realized that I was making a really good living from it, and I did enjoy it, but it really wasn't why I got into it in the first place. It wasn't why I went to film school. It wasn't why I went to the cinema. And I really wanted to work on things that I really loved. So I sort of pivoted and decided what I needed to do was meet people who were working in TV drama and film. And so all the time that I was freelancing in short form, I was networking and meeting people, and eventually someone gave me a job. So it took a while.
So was that easy?
It's so easy.
Yeah.
It was not easy. It took a really long time.
Well, I was going to say, like, you and I've known each other for quite a while now. And one of the things that always impressed me was how embedded in the community you made yourself. So
thank you.
You were always at events. You were always, everyone I know talks highly of you.
That's so nice. Thank you.
So, like, when we announced this, the amount of people who were like, oh my God, awesome, Sean's coming on. Oh, this is going to be great. And we're very excited. And I think that was also one of your keys to success, was making sure people knew who you were and being just a good person. I guess to say.
Debatable on that one, but I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I think, obviously meeting people, building relationships, and ultimately you want to work with people you like. So there's a lot of sense in going out and meeting people and getting to know people and making friends, because you do really want to end up working with your friends. Like that's kind of the ideal situation. And I do really enjoy meetups. I enjoy hearing from people, and I enjoy talking to people. I've been a bit adrift actually, like just working from home and only seeing my partner every day, because I really miss that. I really miss talking. That's why I leapt to the opportunity to speak to you, Gordon. Someone wants to talk to me. Yeah.
So someone wants to know what your best advice would be for a freelance editor trying to find work, either paid or unpaid, to build up a portfolio to get more clients.
Ooh, big question.
Yeah.
My best advice for a freelance editor looking to build up their portfolio. Is this in the UK or is this in the US?
I think we're in the US and the UK, but it's most likely US.
That's tricky. I don't ever want to advise people to do unpaid work unless they're really getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
My route was I went to a production company. I didn't study editing. I actually wasn't very interested in editing at film school at all. I specialized in camera and lighting, and I DP'd and gaffered a bunch of short films, like all the way through film school. And I sort of accidentally, sort of just because it was part of the larger job, really, like at MTV, I started cutting like little clips and little commercials, and then we did like a half-hour show, which was like a little Lincoln clip show, and I was doing paper edits and things like that. If you're looking to build up your own portfolio, working at a production company where you have other people around you, or I know it's difficult for you to say freelancer, but getting a gig within a group of people is really advantageous because you're going to get other people to learn off of. So yeah, short form is really tricky. Mm-hmm. I'd also bear in mind, like, ask yourself who you want to work for ultimately. Like, what type of content do you want to work on rather? Who do you want to work for? And then reach out to those people. So if there's a company that makes documentaries which you love, start a conversation with them really early on. Go introduce yourself. Like, you've literally got nothing to lose. And then something might come round and they go, oh, there was that person who's trying to kick off their freelance career. We need a junior, we need an assistant, we need someone actually who's going to sit and transcribe stuff. And that's probably the best thing I would advise. Mm-hmm. Is just start those conversations early and be sure of which ladder you want to be on.
Yeah, because it's hard to get between areas in film, right? Like, it's just,
oh my goodness.
If you're a commercial editor, you're a commercial editor.
Yeah, there's a lot of starting again when you set your sights on another like ecosystem, because these areas don't really cross-pollinate. They don't talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So you may as well be moving to a different industry. So, that's really why it takes so long if you are, as someone said to me, on the outside looking in. That's how it felt to me when I was editing short form but wanted to be in drama. That's how it feels. Yeah. So don't be disheartened if it takes a while.
And I think jumping back to your earlier comment about not taking free work or trying not to take free work, I think the best advice I got when I left film school was, if you're going to do free work, only do it on shorts for filmmakers that you can build relationships with. If someone comes to you and is like, I got a feature, do you want to cut it for free? Don't do it. And then, but they were saying, like, the whole process is you're building those relationships in the shorts, and it's small blocks of time. And then their other advice was, it's on your schedule. So if they're like, oh, it has to be done for this or that, you're like, I've got a paid gig, I got to go to that. That comes first.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I would go one further and make sure that if it is unpaid and it's a low, no pay job, that you are getting something out of it that you wouldn't otherwise be getting if you didn't do it. So as you say, building relationships, getting a particular credit that you want. And I would say you can be really strategic. Like, I think the best advice I think I've ever been given in this industry is have savings. Have a little pot of money that means you get to choose your next job. You don't have to take the next thing that comes along. Mm-hmm. And by choosing the next thing that you do, you're going to be building what your CV looks like. And for a long time, my CV looked like this, like, scattergun, like, approach. And for a long time, it just had everything on there. Mm-hmm. And my CV was like 3-4 pages long. Like, I was freelancing with an agency for a while, and they would just put everything on in one long list. It doesn't tell anyone who you are. And that's what your CV is doing. It's telling someone who you are and what you want, what you've done, but also where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So if that has a very strong sense of self, the CV itself, it's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
And you can only make those choices if you have enough money in the pot to say no to things.
It's tricky when you're starting out, but once you figure it out, yeah.
Yeah. But if you're doing shorts, apply the same mentality. Don't say yes to
fantastic.
everything that comes along, like be very specific in what you say yes to.
Now, someone asked, and this is a really interesting question that I'm looking at here. What's the most important part of an editorial team's dynamic for you?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad we opened this up to questions for everyone.
Oh, point to that person.
Yeah.
What is the most important dynamic? I mean, trust on so many levels. Trusting other people to get stuff done that you need them to get done. Being able to rely on people being able to rely on you. Not second guessing each other. Like, you waste so much time. I have seen and experienced so much time being wasted in the cutting room by being questioned constantly. And coming into an environment where everyone trusts each other is really, really priceless.
How would you
I'm
build
going to keep
that
thinking
trust?
on that. I think genuinely you have to go in and by default expect that people know what they're doing, and not go in thinking, oh, they're going to have to prove themselves to me. I think you have to look, everyone's there because they're great and they've worked really, really, really hard to be there. So by default, let your position be, I trust these people. Trust is earned, but I think you can do a lot of damage to those relationships by assuming off the bat that someone might not have it.
Yeah.
You damage your confidence in them, you damage their confidence. And also, I think I quite like vulnerability and empathy in cutting rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I know it can be quite a competitive place, but I don't want to be competing with the people in my team. I want to, if I don't know something, I want to be like, hey guys, anyone know, the answer to this? Or has anyone got a really good sound effect for this? Or, hey, how have you guys approached this problem before? Because I'm out of ideas. I really, really don't like styling out something. Like, if you've done something wrong or you don't know the answer, just fess up and fess up early.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll just be between us. That's fine. But yeah, that sort of shared honesty and a little bit of vulnerability, I really value.
Yeah. And not beating people up if they don't know, right? Like,
Oh no. Yeah, I hope that went without saying, but absolutely not. Because we all don't know stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, we're chatting and it's so lovely to be doing a chat like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's loads of people asking questions, but let me be really clear. I don't know everything. I really, really don't know everything. We're all muddling through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to pretend otherwise is you can set yourself up for a bigger failure than is worth it, And I would much rather someone in my team came to me and said, I've messed something up. And then we work out how to quietly fix it, than they hold on to it and start it out, I really don't mind people making errors as long as it's not something that keeps happening.
Yeah.
If it's something that keeps on coming up, that's a slightly different situation. But look, we are all human and we all make errors, and it's fine.
Now, as that person has a follow-up, and that is, how do you maintain team health?
Team health?
Yeah.
With that?
Is your team maintain, the relationships, but also keeping people sane, and, you're working long hours. So how do you keep it healthy?
Yeah, as much as possible. And it will be different in different place, different kind of rooms. Split the shifts as much as you can. Mm-hmm. Have some people come in early, have some people stay late. Like, that's not rocket science. Not everyone needs to be in the cutting room, for the entire time the editor wants to work for. Mm-hmm. So I think that, be bold and do that. Split the team in half if you can. encourage people to take breaks by doing the same. Again, I don't think any of it is particularly rocket science. I think you need to look after your health. Like right now, during this pandemic, we have like two jobs, right? One is to stay home, and one is to look after our mental health. So I would really be very sad if anyone on my team is like missing a lot of sleep or, feeling really, really stressed out. And I'm still very much learning as well. Like it's being a first is being a manager. And I think that's really a really difficult job and not something to be underestimated. So yeah, good question. I'm going to keep thinking about it.
And then they have one more follow-up, and then I'll go to other people's questions, which is how can a post supervisor do their part to make sure that their team is healthy?
Oh, good question. It's really, really, really nice when the PPS sees that you're working really long hours and then goes to bat for you and then goes, does this really need to be done? Does it need to be done tonight though?
Yeah.
But really does it? That is really, really, really nice. And when it has happened, has made me feel very valued as a team member. So, we're all under a lot of pressure to work long hours and meet our deadlines. And oftentimes it feels like maybe you're on your own with that, you're carrying that yourself. So yeah, when a PPS knows, one, that you're working really long hours and then understands what it is that you're driving towards and then can assess whether that's a necessary thing by maybe, going, taking that on themselves and asking someone, your editor, whether it's an editor or a producer, hey, do we need this output tonight though, really? Because it's like 1 a.m. Can we, with a few hours ahead of us. Yeah, that's really lovely.
Now, I do want to point out that someone says they're in the middle of trying to transition from a short form to drama, and so they're glad to hear that it's possible.
It's totally possible. Yeah, it's very possible. And also, I would say you bring with you skills. Do not think you're starting over again. There's a lot of transferable skills from your short form career into drama. I found you're used to being a big cog in a small machine. So admittedly, you're moving into a much larger machine where you're a small cog. And so that was a bit of a transition for me to know that, to stay quiet. Like you're not the main person bringing the show home anymore. So you can take a step back. However, you know how to cut already. You know how to cut trailers, you know how to cut recaps, like you know how to deliver, you know how to color stuff, you know what, probably if you're delivering short form things, you might know how to mix. You probably have looked at loads of deliverables already, so turnovers are not going to be a huge leap for you. The main piece that you have to learn is how to do dailies, because that's very, very specific to drama. But if you can get someone to show you how to do dailies, you're in a really, really good position. So yeah, feel encouraged because it is doable.
Now, someone says they're just getting out of film school. What would you recommend to those just getting out of film school and making it into the film industry?
It depends on your location, but first of all, I would say join a Facebook group called the Blue Collar Post Collective. They hold meetups in lots of different cities. Go to meetups, starting meeting people, and reach out to people who you like the work of. So if there's a particular editor that you like, or there's a particular show and you can see the same person who's been working on like the shows that you like, reach out to them. Like there isn't anyone who dislikes receiving a lovely email from someone.
Yeah.
Like that. It's only a question of whether they have time because they're so busy to reply to you. So, and I would approach it like you are a sort of 1930s film noir detective. You're now an internet detective. So keep track of who you speak to, keep track of, when they get back to you, what you discuss, like broad strokes, but keep a track of it because you'd be surprised how many relationships that you start come back around years and years and years later.
Yeah.
So do you remember when we met, Gordon? Do you remember when were first in the same room?
Sorry?
Do you remember when we were first in the same room together?
Not 100% sure. I want to say in LA, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was in London.
Okay.
And you had come over for an Art of the Guillotine meetup.
Yeah.
For Edit Fest. And I forget what year it was, but I want to say it was like 7 years ago.
Yeah, probably.
It was something like that. And that day was when I met Fran Parker for the first time, who ended up being my editor on The Crown.
Oh, wow.
So that was a sort of 7 years in the making. Yeah. So, and yeah, things come back around. So yeah, keep track of, gently, but have a spreadsheet or something.
It's funny because I still talk to one of the people who gave me my first job back in 2000. And now we're he and I are talking about doing some work once the COVID thing's done. So it's just 20 years. So I have to ask you about the previous stuff for
Oh yeah, of course.
What would you say is the most challenging thing in previs? Because you've done previs for a lot of big films.
Yeah, the most challenging thing.
Like I guess to fill it in, like I feel like people just think it's slapping together your animatics or your have you, but I feel like there's a lot more, and I've never done it, so I'd love to know.
Yeah. Well, the way that we worked, I worked for a previous company called The Third Floor, and they have an office in London and an office in LA, and they are quite, I think, unique in the fact that they have in-house editors, of which I wasn't. And the way that they ran it is you're assigned to a team, you have a previous supervisor, and they have a team of artists who make the shots. And so in the first instance, it depends on how much a brief they've been given, but they will be sort of at least on their end designing the sequence. Is there going to be a wide, then there's a close-up, and they may or may not have a script. They may or may not have storyboards. Like it was definitely in the minority of the jobs that we were given storyboards for. More often than not, someone would come in and like talk you through it and what they kind of wanted. And so they would have a crack at it, and then you would get all of the shots, and then you would be putting it together. And that's the easy part, because you're just, you're comping these shots together. Mm-hmm. The tricky part is then looking at that and telling them what's wrong with it, telling them what's missing, telling them what you need to tell the story, what's not serving the story. And then that can get quite granular. So because you're normally working on a sequence at a time, so that can be 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 7 minutes, it could be that our eye trace was being dragged over here. So actually, can we slightly change the composition of this shot? Or I know we can't move the camera back any further, but can we change the lens? Because what I really need is this context. I need to be able to see this object over here. It's not enough to have it just in the shot before. So it's that feedback loop, the editing of it, the operating the avid of it is not challenging. The challenging and really exciting part of working in previs is the editing craft of it. And then, they take that to set, and then whatever they come back with is, goes off to post-production, and they, at that point, will probably quite rightly look at what you did, put it down, and then reassess what they've got. So it's not, you're not producing like a paint by numbers for the edit. Mm-hmm. You are working through the problems before they get to set, where the cameras need to be placed. Mm-hmm. And remember all the sequences that you previs, they're not people sitting down talking. They're like bonkers action sequences. So lots of vehicles, lots of people doing fantastical things, robots fighting on ice, so you can put the camera anywhere. And that I learned so much from working in previs. I owe a huge debt to the people that I worked with, and who taught me so much, and it was so valuable. And then you have to crack out a lot of sound design very quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's once the edit starts to settle down, but I always found in previs it never really does, because everyone loves to play with it, so it's always changing. Yeah. So organizing your your sound, your audio, in a way that means you can kind of concertina it. So making sure you've got enough like BGs to pull the whole thing out and bring it back in. Little tricks like that, making sure you have all your good stuff on hand and ready to go. Yeah.
Now I've got a question in here, and the person says it's a tough question. Have you had a single favorite moment in your professional career?
Oh, that's so good. I had lots of them on The Crown. And I have lots of them on my show at the moment. One of my favorite moments on The Crown was getting a risk assessment for corgis.
For which? For corgi.
I think it was like in the first couple of weeks of working on the show, and I was like, "You're not in Kansas anymore. You're really not." I was so fortunate on The Crown that I got to go into a lot of the screenings, and I drove the Avid during the spots, and I got to go to the dub, and I got to go to a little bit of the grade, and I got to go to one of the music recording sessions. I think it was at Air Studios here in London, and sitting and watching the sections of the edit. You know so well, inside out. And I was sat next to the director, and the composer's doing their thing, and the orchestrator is in the other room, and they're recording the music. Was really electric, and it was wonderful. And I love those really pure moments where you can just take a breath and appreciate what you've been working so hard on, and really feel it in the way that someone else is going to come to it.
And I love going to color correction and the mixes. Those are my favorite, because it's just watching everything just click all of a sudden, because you hear the new sound or you see the new visuals or the effects start to come in, and you're like, it's amazing. It
was amazing. And I really saw, my job on The Crown, and every job as an assistant, as an apprenticeship. And I think that can get a little lost sometimes, because you're always up against it. You've always got too much work to do and not enough time. You normally finish the job like a week after turnover. You start, you don't have enough prep time. You're always like playing catch up. And you can really lose sight of the fact that it's an apprenticeship. At the heart of it, that's the point of the job, is to teach you about all of these things. And more now, our editors are not, first of all, they're not in the same room, but they might not be in the same city. You might be working remotely. And so the opportunities to learn have lessened. I think there are fewer of them than there would have been like 20, 30 years ago, And I really went out of my way to say, can I sit in the grade for half a day? Can I go to the dub for a little bit? Can I visit it? And more often than not, people were really like, oh, you're interested? Yeah, come on by. Like, I went to visit Post Sound as well, because I was like, I just really want to know what your experience is when you get my turnover and you unpack it. Like, what are you like making faces about? What are you eye rolling about? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Which is coming super handy. Like, genuinely, the next job I had, understanding what they were doing and how they needed to conform the sound helped me on my very next job. Like, I could translate that process to someone. So my favorite moments are when I've managed to get in the room where it happens, where the decisions are being made, understanding the language of it as well. It's really important.
I think this might be a personal message to you, but it says, Lynn Fever has wrote, what are your future goals?
That's my sister. Who would have thought it? What are my future goals? My immediate goal is to be an assembly editor, and then to be an editor. Those are my immediate goals. So here, I don't know how much you have this in Canada. Do you have many assembly editors in the US? In Canada?
I don't know. I don't hear of that much in Canada. It might be more in the US though. Okay.
Here it's fair. I mean, I wouldn't say it's common, but we have editors. So there's a step between being a first assistant and being an editor, called an assembly editor. And they're not used on every show by any means, but on some films and some shows, a little bit like an associate editor, similar sort of step.
Mhm.
So yeah, my immediate goal at least is to keep practicing assembling, keep assembling in my own time. It's tricky to find the time, but hey, we have nothing but right now. And uh, and um, and yeah, and be an editor and be an editor on the shows that I'm working on. Honestly, I love these types of shows. I love kind of the world of high-end television. I think it's really great. Um,
Yeah, someone just wanted to clarify the name of the group you recommend, and that's Blue Collar Post Collective, correct? Or
Correct. Yeah.
BCPC. Uh,
BCP.
yeah. Now, this is an interesting question. What are your fundamental strategies for staying organized per episode and per show normally when you're in the office, but also when you're working remotely?
Oh, interesting. I on the last two shows I worked, I'm only working. I think on The Crown I worked on 2 episodes,
Mhm.
so it really wasn't. To be fair, it wasn't very difficult to keep track. I sort of had 2 lists going, and I had 2 editors. So, episode 302 was cut by Tim Porter, and then 304 was cut by Fran Parker, and I had literally 2 lists going, and I would go, I do one of you, 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 and I just kept to make sure they sort of got an equal amount of time. But write everything down, write everything down, strike it off, write it down, strike it off. Like, it doesn't really have to be, for me at least, and everyone's going to be different. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. There were times when I tried to make it more complicated than that. I'm a really big fan of GTD and OmniFocus and apps like productivity apps and things like
Mhm.
that. And I kept coming back to paper and pen, honestly. I like to record what I do every day as well, in brief as possible. So I have a diary, and it's Friday the 24th of April, and between this and hour I did this. Then we sent this. Someone needed a reference for this. Sent. Delegated this to that person.
Yeah.
Because you can just lose track really easily, and you can maybe forget you've done things, or someone goes, hey, where was this thing? I asked for this thing. And you're like, I know exactly when we did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that I started adopting, because I kept forgetting when I'd done stuff, or if I'd done things. So many things come through the cutting room.
Yeah. Well, someone asked, and this kind of I think is what you've talked about a bit, but how can a post PA or intern really shine on the team? Like, what can they do to really shine?
Make a really good cup of tea if it's my cutting room. Be interested, be enthusiastic, ask questions, pick up on the politics of the room, know when to speak, when not to speak. If you're in any doubt, don't, and then find a quiet moment later to mention whatever or ask the question. Ask for things. Ask, can I do more? Hey, I see you're really busy with that task. Can I take it off your plate? Is there something I can do to make your life easier? And then after a few weeks in the job, ask for feedback. Ask for feedback on a Friday for the Monday, so people have the weekend to think about it. And I think you'll find they'll come back with either confirmation that you're doing great or something that you can think about. We do a horrible job in cutting rooms of telling people they do a great job, is what I found.
Yeah.
We are so busy and we're so preoccupied with hitting our deadlines. You only hear if you've done something wrong. You don't normally hear if you've done something really great. It's just like, cool, and on to the next. So seek out feedback, because the thing that you might be hearing and you might be picking up on is you did stuff wrong. And you might, unfortunately, not know all the great stuff you've been doing, because we have a bit of an issue with feeding back, I think.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because I remember something that stuck with me from one of the edit fests was one of the editors said when he was starting out as an assistant, it was just him and the editor, and they would work really long days, and their cars were always parked beside each other. And so it was slowly, it's like we'd walk out together at the end of the day, and every day he would always, the editor would unlock the car, then pause, and just turn to him and be like, by the way, you did a good job today. And then just get in the car and go off. And so, like, and he said that he's done that now. And I'm like, since hearing that, I'm like, I always try to tell people who work with me, yeah, you did a good job, or something like that, because it really meant a lot to him when he was telling us like, how much it helped him get through tougher times. That he knew he was doing the right thing.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, like, the cutting rooms that I've been in, everyone's been really strong. They've been really strong performers. And so you just take it for granted after a while, you know, that everyone's doing great. They know they're great. And so I think through that, you do tend to, in editorial, end up with like a strong sense of buoying your own confidence, I think. Does that make sense? Because you don't always get that feedback loop. I think that's something that it's advisable to develop and do a lot of self-talk.
Yeah.
You know, I did really great on that. That was really good. I impressed myself. I outdid myself today. But yeah, don't be afraid to seek out feedback. I'm a really big fan, as an extension of that, of doing post-mortems. So if you, you know, you've done a couple of episodes and you have a bit of time, or you finish a job, and whether that's with yourself and no one else ever has to look at it, or with your team, it's really helpful to look at objectively what went well and what didn't go so well at a job, and then build on top of that, because between jobs you can kind of forget or wander into the same trap, you know, that you fell into on the last job. So yeah, there's a really good post, and I think it's on Mixing Light, I think so, but it's written by Katie Hinton, all about postmortems. Yeah, if anyone finds a link, please post it in the chat or something, because it totally changed how I looked at my own self-assessment. It's really, really valuable.
Now, I want to wrap this up, because I know you've been more than generous with your time, but I do have to say that Mark Bradford says you're amazing to work with, and any support / advice you give is second to none.
Oh, he's working with us at the moment, and he's our PA, so it's very,
awesome.
very, very kind of him.
Now, in the interviews I do for the AOTG podcast, I always ask at the end, you know, what's your favorite guilty pleasure film to watch? But because we're in this COVID-19 experience, I'd like to know what is the hobby that you're doing to keep yourself entertained during this time? So for those who can't see, sorry.
This is my knitting, if you guys can see. There we go. I'm knitting a jumper. I was a knitter before COVID, but I have a lot more time to knit now. Heartily advise taking up knitting if anyone feels like it. And I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, audiobook podcasts, Staying In with Emily and Kamel.
Oh yeah.
That one?
I don't listen to that one, but I know Kamel and his wife. They're great.
What? Sorry? Excuse me?
Isn't it?
Excuse me, Gordon. The legends, you know the legends that are Emily and Kamel?
Yes. Well, they both got nominated for the Oscar.
You know everyone. Well,
I don't know them personally.
That's what I thought. Oh my God. Wow. Everyone from She's Freak, now Emily and Kamel. They're really awesome. They have a great podcast. I would heartily recommend it. It's just about coping through this time, and it's really lovely. And Paul Feige is doing like a cocktail quarantine time on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's keeping me sane. He does it every day. Every day, makes a new cocktail, gets dressed up, dances like in front of the camera. It's a joy. And if you are all into motorsport, the Formula One drivers are all racing each other on Twitch, which is very funny. Oh. So if that's your bag, get on Twitch. Yeah.
and outside of that time, what are the podcasts you listen to?
Oh, do you know what? I've been finishing up Dolly Parton's America, which is amazing. And I've also been catching up on Ronan Farrow's Catch and Kill. Like, not light topics, really, either of them, but it's phenomenal. It's really good. I would heartily recommend his book as well if you're up to it.
Yeah. Are these are like I guess murder podcast type? Like
Dolly Parton's America is.
Oh yeah, that one I've been listening to. But the other one,
really, really good. No, Catch and Kill is Ronan Farrow wrote the book about the Weinstein. He broke the Weinstein scandal. And his book reads like a spy thriller because it kind of is. And then the podcast, he's taking sort of new, like deep dives into particular people. So he talks to all of the newspaper editors that he works with and like tells their story with them. He talks to particular like witnesses. Like it's really good. Yeah. But again, like approach with caution because obviously it's difficult listening. That might not be your thing right now, and that's okay.
Well, thank you so much for letting us interview.
Oh, you're kidding? It's been really fun.
Yeah, and we'll have to catch up more often.
That would be really, really nice. I would really like that. Yeah.
So
you gotta come over to London.
Trust me, I love gardens, and I keep trying to organize trips there. And I actually organized a trip. There's a special garden in Quebec that was Penelope Hobhouse has gone there and talked about it. It's like a really hidden treasure, and it's only open for 1 day a year. And this year I was able to get tickets because it sells out really quickly. And now I can't go.
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll have to catch up more often.
That'd be really great.
For everyone watching, just so you know, you can catch us again next week. Next week we're going to have Eugene Garrity, the sound designer for Martin Scorsese, Spike Lee, and Ang Lee. All right, so thanks again for letting us do this chat with you, and we'll have to touch base later.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for asking me, and I'm pretty convinced the only reason you reached out to me is because you've heard my surname for like the last 2 months on the news.
Yeah, like, exactly.
So, but I'm grateful regardless. So it's really been really fun, and thank you to everyone for the awesome questions. They were really, great
questions.
So thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.